The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that whoever builds a mosque for Allah, Allah will build for him a similar house in Jannah. And we know the great reward that will not only be gained, but rather will fill your grave after your death. Whenever someone prays there, whenever someone gives shahada in the masjid, whenever someone learns something in the masjid, yes, that will be something that you'll have on your scale.
So, Mr. Golding, I wanted to ask you, we were going back and forth on the emails, and you were proposing a sparring match. You said you spoke to your legal advisors, and they were saying that this is not going to be something that we can license. I want you to explain to the public exactly what you've spoken to them about and the details pertaining to that.
So it was yourself that tried to get us on a mainstream or localized, regionalized MMA event. And of course, that's too problematical because you're controversial, I'm controversial. If my fans turn up and your fans turn up, no one wants to touch that. It's too extreme and too controversial. So then we went for the idea of having what you said, an underground event. And obviously, I'll put that to my solicitors. I've put it to a criminal solicitor, civil solicitor. They both come back with the same thing. It's a little bit problematical because the reason we have a licensing infrastructure in this country regarding fights is because essentially it suspends the law. So if me and you jump in a ring and it's licensed, we can batter away at each other, no problems. But if it's unlicensed, you could get done for ABH or common assault, and so could I. So what has been proposed to me by my legal advisors is to have a sparring session and let the either live stream it, put the video up afterwards, and let the public decide.
And in that sparring session, like how would it be? So what kind of gloves would you want me to wear? What kind of gloves would you wear? Would you want to put on a protective headgear? What would you want to do exactly? Who would be the referee? Do you have any answers to these particular questions? Or
referees can be hired, so can medical staff. We can make sure all of that's available. It will be in a controlled, as far as the law is concerned, a controlled sports environment. So it'd still be exactly the same in every single way, except that it would be a sparring session as opposed to a full contest, a full bout at an event. And that way we can get this done. You want this to happen. I want this to happen. We've been emailing backwards and forwards now for a few months. I've been waiting patiently for your fight to happen recently. And there's nothing going to stop this happening. Even if me and you both have to hop on a plane to China, this is going ahead one way or another. You've got a preference for, I suggested we go to Spain and do it. You've got a preference for doing it in the UK. This looks like the only way we are actually going to be able to actually do this and put this on and make it happen. So yeah, let's agree a date, MMA rules.
sure. What about the gloves and all that stuff?
4-ounce MMA gloves.
Sorry, 4 ounce, yeah?
Just like you was fighting in recently. 4-ounce MMA gloves, and we'll jump in there. 3 5-minute rounds, 3-minute rounds, whatever's you can decide all of that. But the point I think you want me to make tonight is that to publicly commit to make this happen, and I'm absolutely determined, as are you, to make this happen one way or another. And I know it doesn't mean much to you, but if you want, I've got my Bible here, and I swear on the Bible that this is going to happen one way or another.
All right. How's your granddad's health anyway? How's he doing?
Very, very good, thank you.
Yeah. He's a Muslim doctor, wasn't he? The one who's treating him.
There's a Muslim doctor's name on the wall.
Is he a good guy? Do you want him back, sent back to Pakistan or wherever he's from?
Absolutely, 100%. Because if it wasn't Muslim doctors in these hospitals, then it'd be English doctors. So I don't see the problem here. Our country, as you know, my position is that we're having wave after wave of unwanted, uninvited mass immigration into this country, and I would send every last one back. That's
So
it.
are they doing something good, these Muslim doctors in the NHS, do you think? Or is that a good contribution or is it a negative
Of
contribution?
course, it's a good contribution, but the point is, it's not a matter of attacking people individually, which is what you're trying to bring this down to a personal level to make it seem like I'm being mean to someone who's helping a family member. The point is, this is a tiny, overcrowded island with barely enough space and resources for our own people. And if this was happening in reverse in Pakistan or wherever you're from, Egypt, wherever your parents or grandparents are from, then they wouldn't put up with this wave after wave, millions of white
Well,
immigrants.
it did happen in reverse. It was called colonialism.
Yeah. And would you say that colonialism was bad?
Yeah, the kind of colonialism that we saw in Pakistan, India, and Egypt, I think was bad. But the
Well, there
point
you
I'm
go.
making is that, like in most of you guys' content, the far right, see, you've been a little bit more fair here today. You were saying that, they're doing a good job, your doctors are doing a good job, but that a lot of you guys' content doesn't recognize any of the positive contributions of, say, immigrants or children of immigrants or Muslims in particular. So are you willing to concede that there is a good contribution here that Muslims are
Of
doing, for
course, there's a
example?
good contribution. There's lots of negative contributions as well, because as you know, not every single Muslim in the United Kingdom is Dr. Muhammad from a hospital in London. You know,
Mm.
there's good and bad, but the point is, on a government policy level, this country's been swamped by mass immigration. We're on track to be a minority in our own country. You tell me what indigenous people around the
I
world.
don't think you're on track to be a minority in your own country. I don't think any projections show that. Like I was looking at some of the stats. The Pew have done like a research on the matter, and they've given like a conservative estimate of how there's a 6% Muslim population in the UK, and they've looked at, for example, 2050 or 2100, if there's high immigration, what the country would look like, and if there's low immigration, and it doesn't exceed 20% in any situation.
Well, that's
So it's
nonsense. The
no.
ethnic minority population or immigrant origin population of the United Kingdom, as we
Mm.
speak, is 25%. We're the native British people are 75%, and that is the ratios are dropping for us, native British people, from 75%. We're dropping rapidly. Mass immigration. Last year, we had 1.2 million foreigners come into the country to settle. That's a city the size of Glasgow. And
Mm.
if you fast forward the tape 20 years, that's 20 cities the size of Glasgow, purely of third world immigrants, just being dotted on a map of Britain. But the point
Well,
is,
last time I saw you're kind of right, but I mean, in terms of the percentage of the indigenous, but last time I saw the Office of National Statistics on it, they said there was an 83% white population in Britain and a 17% ethnic population. As I say, that's not really atypical of any country. Like you have Muslim countries, Malaysia, for example, Bosnia, another example. You have Muslim countries with significant non-Muslim populations. So it's why is this such a big issue for someone like yourself, where you feel I understand the point about like uncontrolled immigration, but why is it a sticking point that it's an anti-Muslim sentiment and this kind of anti, I would say, ethnic sentiment as well? Like, why is it that?
because my family are born and bred South London, and they had to
Sure.
move out of South London because of mass immigration back in the 70s and so
Mm.
on.
Mm.
I've watched my own town of Erith in southeast London completely transformed by mass immigration. We're now a
Yeah.
minority in London, we're a minority in Leicester, a minority in Birmingham, and so many other towns and cities. And if you just fast forward the tape, we're being reduced and reduced. Eventually, we can argue about the numbers and the years this will take place when we'll arrive at that destination. But this is where we are heading. And I'm sorry, I'm against that. And I've always been against it
As I
for
say,
26 years.
like in the beginning when I said to you that Pew Research done a research on if not just in the UK but entirety of Europe, if immigration continued in a certain trajectory, that it wouldn't be the numbers that you're talking about. It's just completely incorrect. You're saying that was wrong, but you haven't cited any particular sources. So if you were to cite a source for what you're saying, I would appreciate that.
Well, with all due respect, you invited me on here to talk briefly about our upcoming fight. So I'm not
Yeah.
armed with sources and figures and statistics.
Well, this is your area of expertise, isn't it? I mean, you're a far right, nationalist, or I don't know how you'd patriot, how
Yeah,
you
but
would
you have to
self-describe.
admit, this is a bit of an ambush. You're saying, please cite some sources and show me some statistics. You invited me on here, and you're
Yeah, sure.
smiling now. You invited me on here to briefly
Well, if you think
discuss
this is
our
an
upcoming
ambush,
fight.
I don't know why you think you're already pressured. We're not engaging any physical altercation, and we're just talking very gently towards each other and speaking. I'm listening to what you're saying. You listen to what I'm saying. You're describing this as an ambush, and you want us to believe that you're gonna fight with me in an environment. I mean, so if this is something threatening to you, I don't see how you're gonna, come to a fight
No one said I
with me.
felt threatened. What I'm saying is we're supposed to be discussing our upcoming fight.
We
You've
we have.
digressed.
We've
Yeah.
discussed the particulars of that, and
Well,
I don't know
if
if
we've
there's any.
discussed it and we've got nothing left to say, then I'll get on with my evening because you invite me on here to discuss our fight. If you want, we can schedule a debate or a discussion and I
Well,
will
we're having
prepare.
one. I don't know why we're scheduling it. We're having a discussion now. If you're going to run away from this, then people are going to say, well, this guy is wanting us all to believe that he's going to be a pay-per-view live event, and he's finding it hard to continue a normal conversation with the guy. You want us all to believe that we're going to pay, people are going to pay pay-per-view. People are going to pay money to see this event. And so if we are not
Hopefully.
convinced that, that you're going to be able to show up, I mean, you're just having a conversation and you're feeling very, very nervous and threatened.
I'm not feeling nervous and I'm not feeling
So why are
threatened.
you trying to run away
I don't
from
know,
this
understand
conversation? We're just talking about
while you
statistics
get
here.
because we was emailing each other what 20 minutes ago and I said, look,
Sure.
I'll give you 5 minutes to talk about the fight. That's it. And now you're digressing onto immigration, Islam, demographics. So let's just get back to what we was talking about. You invite me on here to talk about our fight. I've
Yeah.
sworn
So
on
you
Holy
said you want to
Bible.
do a sparring match, and you said you want me to wear 4-ounce gloves with no protective gear, so no shin pads and no headgear. I said that's fine. I mean, that's no problem at all. We can
Well,
arrange
then
that.
let's agree a date. What was the date I sent you the other day?
I don't know, but we can sort that out. I'd have to look at my schedule for the date because I've got a pretty packed schedule. I'm finishing off the PhD actually, so I need
Right.
to yeah, I've got some examinations on that first. So yeah, well, no problem. We can agree a date on the emails. That's not a problem. But when I would suggest on this point actually that we don't. Last time you kind of jumped the gun a little bit, making I think you made some promotional content, like a video or something like that, or
So I
some
made a
things.
poster. I
Yeah,
made a
sure, sure.
poster with date to
I
be
enjoyed
announced.
I
Yeah.
enjoyed it myself, and you had like grudge match and my face and your face. I would suggest that unless we both agree on the day and the place and time, that we shouldn't announce it
Fine by
or
me.
to tell the public if that's agreeable to you.
Yep. And we'll work this out via email. And then by mutual consent, we'll create a poster or a video, promote the event, and then we'll put it out there by mutual consent.
Yeah, by mutual consent. And what it is I'm going to give you like the name of the location, whatever it's going to be, some gym somewhere in the UK. If you're happy with that particular gym, if you want another gym, whatever you feel comfortable with. I mean, if you have a suggestion for a gym, I don't mind that as well. It can be anywhere you want. So I think we've fleshed out all the details here. But I've got a couple of things I've got to do. I've got a very packed travel schedule, and also I've got my PhD examinations that I've got to do, very important ones. But just wanted to ask you a couple of questions just before you leave, and I'm sure you're not going to want to run away because it's going to be a really bad look if you do so. Look, we've spoken about a bit the demography. You are fair enough in the
Look,
beginning
with
to
all
say,
due respect,
yeah, okay,
Mohammed,
sure, sure.
I came on here to speak about the event.
We have
Okay.
spoke. I mean,
Yeah,
we're already
look,
speaking to each other.
if you want, we can rearrange and we can schedule a debate. No problem. But tonight,
That's
I
fine.
said
We're
10
just
minutes
talking.
max.
We're just talking, right? I mean, all we're doing right now is you've got your views, right? And you're on Twitter every single day, and you're promulgating those views. I've got my views, and I'm saying that you're already a spokesperson for the far right, or for the nationalists, or for the patriots, or whoever. So you clearly have the information at hand. Otherwise, you wouldn't see it fit to go on Twitter and speak about things. So all I'm just saying to you right now is, in terms of what you've mentioned before about the numbers are not in the way that you're saying that they are. Look,
Well, if you feel that way, let's schedule a debate and I'll have all the figures and stats available and we can debate for hours if you want. But like I said, via email, which you agree to, tonight,
okay.
5, 10 minutes, we'll talk about the fight and we'll talk about the fight
So
only.
what you were saying in the beginning then is what you were saying in the beginning with confidence. You want to retract those statements because you're suggesting now that you don't know the stats, you don't know the sources. So
No, of course I know the stats. You're asking me for written sources.
no,
And I'll
not written sources. Just give me any source that we can fact check that the internet can fact check. You were speaking confidently and stridently in the beginning, right? And you were saying these are the numbers, and this is you were falsifying what I was saying. You were contradicting what I
And
was
all it
saying.
takes is for people to go and Google these things, and they'll find, exactly where I got my information from. It's not a secret. I saw it on GB News recently because Nigel Farage was asked about it by one of the GB News presenters. Are you concerned that the British population has plummeted to 74% of the population? It's going down rapidly. And Nigel
The
Farage
British
replied, saying,
population.
no, that is not a concern of mine. So
Yeah,
what I'm
that's not a
talking
credible
about.
source. And the fact is GB News is not an academic source, but the fact is it's 83% of white people. But then would you consider black people to be British because they're not included in that 83%? So do you think a black man is British or no?
I'll answer it this way, yeah? Where are your parents from?
Egypt.
Egypt. So in my mind, you're an Egyptian. I'm not
Okay,
Chinese. I'm not Japanese.
I'm not
Okay.
offended by that. I'm just asking you, do you think a
Well,
black
then
person is British?
why should people who come from Africa or the Caribbean be offended when I say that they're not British?
Well, I'm asking you that if they were born in this country, right? So if these people were born just like you were in this country, because surely like maybe
So
four or
what?
five generations down, somebody came from another country, maybe Ireland, maybe Scotland, maybe Wales, maybe somewhere
Duke,
else. It goes
Duke
back to
of
the
Wellington
Anglo-Saxons.
was born. The Duke of Wellington was born in Ireland. Doesn't make him Irish. He's a typical English aristocrat.
So then at what
Joanna
point
Lumley,
do
the
you
actress, was born in India.
mm,
No one claims that Joanna Lumley is Indian. It
sure.
doesn't
Well, at
matter where
what
you're
point do we
born.
say no, it's interesting. I'm just ascertaining the point here. At what point do you say that someone is British? So how many generations does it have to be? So, for example, like if someone is mixed race, if someone's half black, half white, for example, and their great grandparents are black or white, would you consider them to be British? Or where's the line that
Yes, of
draws?
course. Like Father Calvin Robertson, he's half Caribbean, half English.
So,
So
so you
yes, he
consider
was.
him to, so then the question is, where's the point? Because he's black. I mean, he's half black
Well,
at
at what
least.
point does someone become or not become Pakistani?
Mm.
You're asking me daft questions. You're
No,
almost
I'm
sounding,
asking you. I can answer that question for you.
yeah,
It's no
but
problem.
you're almost sounding
When,
like
yeah.
one of these left wing, highly biased, media hacks, trying to get right down into the nitty gritty of who's British and who's not.
No, but
Look,
there needs to be like, there needs to be a measure here. So, because what I'm trying to get from you is, if you ask me what Pakistani is, you can just simply say someone who was born in Pakistan.
no, it's not someone who's born in Pakistan. It's someone who, for generations, is part of that nation. And
Okay.
in
Well, it
in
depends on
the
how citizenship is defined. I'm asking you about how citizenship is
Yeah,
defined for
because
you.
the thing is, right, all right, let's rewind. I've When you're talking about this, if we were in government tomorrow,
Sure.
you have to look at this from two perspectives. One is civic and one is ancestral.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So in a civic sense,
Mm,
people who are born here, even
mm,
people first generation who are born here,
yeah.
do become British citizens.
And you
Okay.
accept that they're British?
No, I accept that they're British citizens, but then in an ancestral, nationalistic way of
Sense.
looking at
Yeah.
things, then people who in a one generation or two originate overseas, then no,
Mm.
they're not. You can't look. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
I get
describe
what
you.
you look. I get what you're saying. And there's this distinction people are making now between British and English as well. Like people calling Anthony Joshua English, and some people object to that fact. Like in France, for example, they call a black man French. There is no English British distinction, and I appreciate that there is some scope for saying, for example, that you're kind of indigenous, ancestral or lineage based or biological kind of race. It does matter. But the question I'm asking you is a little bit
Well, then
more
we're on the same
specific.
page with this thing. Then
No, I mean it does matter. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't. Like for example, many black people would consider with themselves to be black and Caribbean at the same time.
and I
They would.
totally respect that, and I totally understand that. If I was in their position, I would think that as well.
So do you
Um,
want these people out of the country, for example, or is that a
what
misconception?
what we want to do is
Mm,
to reverse the situation. So we've had
sure.
immigration,
Hmm.
and we want remigration. So we would, first of all, we would deport anyone connected to Islamic extremism. And I'm sorry, in my view, you would be on the first plane, being honest.
No problem.
And yeah, you'd be deported within a heartbeat, to be fair.
That's no problem. Yeah.
So Islamic extremists would be deported, illegal immigrants would be deported,
Mm,
and we just roll back the tape.
mm,
People who are foreign criminals, for example, and
mm,
we just roll back the tape until the British people become 90% of the population. That is our official
All right.
policy.
So in terms of like you've said that you respect that if you've got a black person who's half Jamaican, or sorry, who's Jamaican, whose parents are from Jamaica, for example, or whose grandparents have come from Jamaica, that you respect the fact that they can identify both as Jamaican in a sense because they respect where they come from, but at the same time as British in a sense because they were born here and they only understand the English language, they only understand British culture. So you appreciate that fact that there's a dual kind of identification thing. Why
I
would
think
you?
it's entirely
Yeah,
natural. To use your example, I think it's entirely natural if you've got an average black man in London, a black
yeah,
lad in
yeah,
his 20s, for example, and his parents were from the Caribbean,
yeah.
but he was born here and this is all he knows. I could understand that he's got a level of attachment to this country. Um, but
Yeah, but
like I
you
said,
said you would identify, if you were in his case, you would identify as both British and Jamaican. You accept that for him, right?
well, I don't think you can. I can't see. I see this in the media all the time. You know, British Indian, British Pakistani. You look. There's no such thing. You can't
Why
be
is
an
there no
Anglo.
such thing though?
You
But
can't be
so
an
so
Anglo-Saxon Pakistani. You can't be an Anglo-Saxon Mongolian. Come on,
no, but
we're going.
why is it so? Okay, so let me ask you this: Is it in your view? Is it only biological then? Is the only marker a biological marker?
It's ancestral. Yes. So look,
So yeah,
my parents. Look, I'll give you an example. My parents are British,
yeah.
and my grandparents are British. And if
Mhm.
you did this over and over again, we'd go all the way back to Stonehenge.
No, but
Okay.
this is a circular argument because we're talking about what is it to be British. So you can't say, well, we're British. I'm saying that at what point do you become British? So what I'm trying to say to you is, if you're, let's say, for example, half black and half white, the question is, at that point, in your view, would you be British or not be British? How much white do you have to be British is the question.
It's not. Look, it's not a matter of being white because if a Polish
Well, it
person.
is. You
No,
were
hold
mentioning
on, let me
British at the
speak.
start.
Okay, let me
Yeah, sure.
speak. If a Polish person came over here, okay, then they would still remain Polish. They wouldn't be all of a sudden become English. Like, and they're white. So it's not a matter, it's a matter of common sense, really. Look, I'm not a Pakistani, and it doesn't matter if I was born in Islamabad or my children were born in Islam. We're not going to be Pakistani, okay? We'll just be English immigrants in Pakistan. Do you agree with that?
Say that again. So say it one more time.
Okay. So if I moved to Pakistan and had
Yeah.
children in Pakistan, in Islamabad,
If they were born
um,
in Islamabad, if
if
they
they
were
were born
born
in
there.
Islamabad, okay, but
Yeah.
you know, they wouldn't be Pakistani and they wouldn't be viewed as Pakistani by
So
the
okay,
people.
so here's how I see it, right? You have spoken up, and I've seen that on your Twitter feed. You've spoken up about South Africans' rights, minority rights in white South Africans, correct? You and
Yes.
Elon Musk and many other people, right? So do you consider them to be South Africans or do you consider them to be
No,
Europeans in Africa?
I consider them to be European settlers that have moved from Europe to South Africa in the British Empire.
So if they
Um,
want to self-identify as South Africans, you say that's an illegitimate self-identification.
See, this has got
So you
many
agree with the blacks on this? You agree with the blacks?
this has got many echoes with like the trans debate. You know, if I identified as a woman, it wouldn't make me a woman, quite frankly.
No,
And why?
no problem. I just want to see. So you agree with the blacks in South Africa? You agree with the Nelson Mandela's party on this fact that these guys are not actually the indigenous, and therefore they should the far right kind of black parties in South Africa. You agree with them?
Fine, yeah, okay, I'll go with that. But I'll tell you what, we'll give South Africa all the ethnic minority population or the black population, African population in Britain, and we'll exchange them for the Dutch and British ancestral
But what about the white
settlers.
people in South Africa that disregard and disagree with what you're saying, and they're saying that we have been, even though we are white and we're South African, we consider ourselves to be South Africa. So are you saying that your view should trump their view, that your essentially your will as a white man in Britain should trump their view as white people in South Africa?
Okay, sooner or later, there's a thing called reality, and
Okay.
that applies to us all. Okay,
Mm.
men can't be women, Pakistanis can't be English, white European settlers can't be South African. Okay, it's common
Yeah.
sense. I feel like uh,
No, no, I know what you're
I'm
saying, but
sure you appreciate, right,
no,
that
but we're
when I
trying to get
debate
to the
lefties
point
and
where we're trying
liberals
to
and
see
so on,
where's the line, because as you like, for example, in America, right? Do you
the
agree that
line is
let me
common
ask you this.
sense.
Let me ask you this because I'm trying to get this. In America, black people in America who only consider themselves to be African American, are you saying they should go back to West Africa?
America is a very different situation because you've got essentially is a country of immigrants, but Britain is not a country of
That's
immigrants.
not true, is it? It's just when
How's
they
it not
migrated.
true?
Well, you're clever enough to know there's Anglo-Saxons that came into Britain and all that kind of thing. You're clever enough to know that. That
Yeah,
it wasn't always there were people from Ireland, there were people from Wales that came in, people different parts of Europe that came into Britain. That there
yeah,
were
of
different
course.
white people that basically make
But
up. If you do a DNA test right now, I'm pretty sure you're going to have maybe part Irish, part maybe Scottish, maybe part German. It could be any of that. Have you done a DNA test before?
I haven't, no. But what you're saying is completely academic. So I'm sure you agree that Nigeria, use Black Africa, for example.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a Nigerian race or a Congo race or a Somali race. Race is above the nation state, as you know, and all white Europeans share a common ancestry if you go back far enough into prehistory. But that that race, if you want to call it that ethnic group, settled down and broke up into languages and nations and became nation states. So you're saying Welsh people
So
came into
Africa, you said
England
African Americans is a different situation, but you didn't explain why. Why? So are
well,
these real
because
American or are they not Americans? Are they real
as you
Americans or not?
know, because America is a
Mm.
country that was founded by either black slaves and white European settlers. So it's not the same situation you have with, say, Germany or
Well,
France.
black slaves weren't founding they were not in control of the Constitution of America or the Declaration of Independence. They were brought over from West Africa in a slave trade. It was a different situation. They weren't founding it in that sense, in the governmental sense. So you could essentially make the same argument that you're making here about the black Africans going back to West Africa. But you seem to have a different standard for America than you do for Britain
Of
without proper
course.
justification. But
No,
what's
no.
your justification for that?
If you go back 1,000 years, there was no such thing as an indigenous American people.
Well, there was no such thing as a British indigenous.
America's
They were
200,
different.
250 years old or so.
If you go back 1,000 years, what it means to be a white Briton was completely different in language and in
not white
biology.
English. No, if you go back 1,000 years, you could be
Well, a
quite,
thousand
quite
years, yeah.
easily white English.
But when did Hastings
Britain is
happen?
a, hold
When
on,
did
Britain
William the
is a
Conqueror?
political
1066, right?
1066. Yes, the population of Britain was over 2 million and 8,000 Norman knights came over.
Sure. So these Normans, that was
It's
about
a
a
tiny
thousand years ago,
speck.
and they came from what is now France, correct?
But they were Vikings. They settled in northern France. The
You
Normans,
have Vikings and you had French and you had people that are now what is Germany.
yes, and they're all
So
white
a
Europeans.
thousand
Like
years
I
ago, you
said,
had all these immigrants coming in, and they
no, they
made you
weren't.
basically.
They weren't immigrants.
What
They
were they
didn't.
then?
They didn't get on a plane and come over and apply for a visa. What you
There
had
were
was
people
a
that
huge.
immigrated.
Hold
Linguistically, an
on.
immigrant is someone who goes from one place to another, isn't it?
What you had was a huge ethnic group, which you can call the white race, white Europeans, whatever. And eventually it broke up into different languages, different nation states, and so on. Those nation states, most of them, like France and England, for example, have been monolithic now for over 1,000 years.
I'm asking you that you said 1,000 years ago England wasn't the same place, but you're aware of Hastings, and you're aware that it was in 1066, and you're aware that the demography changed in England very dramatically after that time.
No,
So
that's incorrect. No, I will,
what do you mean? How is that incorrect?
according to all
That's well
the,
known.
hold on. According to the DNA studies, when the Anglo-Saxons came over, they changed the population to the degree of 20% of the population.
That's
When the North,
significant.
when
It's more
it
than what
was,
you're talking about with the Muslim population. Six
but you're
percent
talking
Muslims
about
come in.
white Europeans coming into a country that was already white European. It
Okay,
made
so
no
what
bloody
Polish
difference
people can come in
whatsoever.
then? 20% Polish can come in?
No, because I would prefer that we stopped all
What
immigration
you
and
prefer
started to
is
reverse it.
irrelevant to the look, because the thing is the standard here that you're using is so arbitrary and so off key, and it keeps changing depending on context without any thought. So
Every
when we
situation is
talk
going
about
to change with context. That's just normal. You can't apply the same thing to one situation and then apply it to another situation
why not,
because
if that's called
every
consistency.
country in the world came about via a different route, via
You were
different structure.
consistent with the South Africa thing, which I have to commend you for, right? I mean, to be fair, you bit the bullet with that. But then when we went to America with the African Americans, you applied inconsistency and then said, cited a historical reason. But then you said 1,000 years ago, Britain wasn't the same, which is historically incorrect because there was major demographic and linguistic changes in British culture. So you don't seem to get the history right with these things. We need to
Well,
we
I
need
would
to know
disagree.
when is it do you think is it acceptable for immigrants to because 1,000 years ago the whole world was a different place. I mean, people were completely different. I mean, in different countries. So at what point do you say that, okay, this is acceptable for these people to be called indigenous to this particular land at this particular time?
All I know is that my country is being overrun with mass immigration, primarily from the third world, primarily Islamic and
Yeah,
African.
but you're going into a talking point
And
now.
it's
Missed the point
changing.
here.
It's changing the face and the nature and the future of my country. And I'm sorry, I've dedicated my life to reversing it. And we can go around in circle. You want to argue about the minutiae and the nitty gritty and the trivialities of nationhood. At the end of the day, we're British. I'm English, and we want our country back, and we want to preserve not only the culture and the traditions and the
Look,
customs.
I understand your
Someone,
desire. I understand your desire to want to. You're a Christian man. You want some. Christianity is now a minority religion because your people are no longer satisfied with that intellectually or spiritually.
well, I could also say the same of Saudi Arabia and all these other places,
No,
which are
you can't
becoming
actually.
very, very Western, very, very quickly.
No, it's become Western, but they still maintain a Muslim identity. I mean, the vast overall.
Yeah, but for how long? They might be a couple of decades behind the transition.
Well, actually, it's growing. It's according to Pew again. It's Muslims will be the majority in 2100. But
Yeah, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Look, I would support Saudi Arabian nationalists keeping Saudi Arabia a Muslim country. I would find solidarity and kindred thinking with those people 100%. I'd have more in common. Hold on, let me make this point. I'd have more in common with people like that in Saudi Arabia who wanted to preserve their country the way it's historically been than I would with white leftist politicians in Britain, who I truly hate and despise. You would say that you would probably try and paint me somehow as a racist and a hater and all this. The only people I truly hate is the traitors at Westminster and the traitors, the journalists in the media. They're the only people I truly hate.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I think what you're starting to mature in your thinking now. I think this conversation has.
This has been my thinking for decades.
No, but I get it. But when I've given you those thought experiments and those comparisons, I think now you're starting to realize that the situation is a lot more fluid than you think it is. Because, frankly, like I said, if you've got someone who's 75% white and 25% black, at what point do we say that this person is indigenous to the land? Like you accepted that Calvin, whatever his name is, I don't know his name is Father Calvin
Robertson, yeah.
Yeah, he's half black, half white. So he doesn't even go over 50%. And you accepted him as British. So you clearly understand that it's not necessarily to do with the color of your skin. But you don't have a formalized philosophy as to exactly where Britishhood starts and where it ends. You don't have a formalized philosophy on that. That's the problem with the movement because you don't know.
That's your opinion. I would say it's pretty crystal clear what we stand for. We want to keep this country
We've
British.
already discussed that. Like,
now there's common sense. We want to keep this country British, and it's as simple as that.
You want to keep it? Are you saying you want to keep it white?
Well, would you deny that the historic British people have been a white European people?
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you the question. I mean, do you want to keep it white?
Like I said, our policy, generally speaking, because it is, like you say, it's a nuanced, complex situation that's been inflicted on Britain without our consent.
No, but you're evading the question now, Paul. You're a brave man. You're going to step in the ring. Come on, you're a brave man. Here, come on, tell me now. Do you want to keep it white or not? It's a simple yes/no answer.
Yes, I do. But like I said a moment ago, I would be happy, and most people on my side of the fence would be happy if we rolled back the clock so that Britain is still demographically a majority.
So that you want black people to go back to Africa then, is it?
I want black criminals to be deported. And
what about the non-criminals? What about because you just said you want to keep it white.
Like I said, right, look, let me just, like I said, we would roll back the tape, okay?
Yeah.
So people who arrived 3 years ago would go first. People who arrived 60 years ago would go last.
So the England football team, for example, half of them should go back to Caribbean.
Well, how would you feel as someone? I imagine you've got loyalty.
You're not answering this question.
Well, imagine if the Egyptian football team was
should
full
get rid of
Saka.
Should remove Saka? Should we send him back to Nigeria or wherever he's from?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. The first person I would deport, it was the first two people, Mohammed, would be you and Ali Darwa and anyone you're connected to. You'd all be deported. So. But like I said, I said I'll give you 5-10 minutes for this to talk about the fight. We've had a really good evening. We've had a good discussion. If you want to schedule a debate, I'm all for it. Let's talk about it via email. Let's get the fight organised. Let's agree to everything. Okay, let's get it done. I've sworn on the Bible. Okay, you can put this up on all your social media channels. The fight's happening.
You also attack Islam quite a lot. What are the 5 pillars of Islam?
Oh, so obviously I don't recite this every day, and quite frankly, I'm not really interested, Mohammed. But as you know, you've got
But why would you
zakat
then attack a
and so
religion
on.
that you don't know the 5 pillars of?
Look, I've written a book about Islam, as you know.
Well, yeah, but you don't know the 5 pillars, do you?
Well, look, you're trying to catch me out here. Look, I will admit,
How could you
okay,
write a book about a
hold on.
religion and you
I
don't know
will
the five
admit,
pillars, Paul?
okay,
Come on.
I will admit that you are a very learned person when it comes to religion. I've watched your debates, okay? I respect all of that.
Thank you.
You've got your views, I've got my views. And I'm just looking forward to getting in the ring with you, okay? And like I say, it's going to be fireworks. And I think everyone on your side of the fence, everyone on my side of the fence cannot wait for it to happen. We've agreed the broad brushstrokes, and I'm sure we'll, get all the small print sorted out. We'll get a poster, we'll get a promotional video, we'll blast it everywhere, and we'll make it happen, okay?
Yeah.
But I do have to go because I did say I need to go within 10 minutes, and I've given you.
I'll let
probably
you go, Paul. I mean, it's been a pleasure talking to you in a weird kind of way. I hope that we've both understood each other's worldview a little bit more. Maybe in the future we'll have another discussion where we speak exclusively about Islam, because I feel honestly, genuinely, I feel like if you understand it, you'll change your views on it. And I think that
I would strongly disagree with all respect. I would strongly disagree.
Well,
Like I
we
said,
can
I've
talk about
written a
it.
book on Islam. If you give me an address, I'll send you a copy so you can maybe fact check it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You can send me your book. I'll fact check it. I'll send you some resources as well if you're
Sounds good.
interested. Okay, and then we can discuss it later on.
Yeah. And as well as jumping in the cage, I'm sure we can have a debate in the future.
Sure.
But
All
I'm
right, thank
sure
you.
it's not going to be civilized when we jump into the cage. I think we both agree on that.
Whatever. I mean, that's the last question I wanted to ask actually, because about the fight. If so, the referee is going to stop it if if you're in a troubled position. Is the referee the one who's going to
If
stop
I'm
this?
in a troubled position.
Well, I
Okay.
don't want to be done as you said for ABA.
All right, yeah, we'll use that example. Yes, I mean, look, the rules of MMA apply. So you've got submission win, you've got KO, you've got TKO.
And if you say I
if-
quit like loudly enough, is
yeah,
that
of course, yeah. If I tap out or you tap out, or I say I quit, you say you quit, which is more likely in my opinion. But yeah, it's just it's the rules of an MMA fight. That's how it's going to go down.
all right, my friend? All right, we'll see whenever we see you later, Paul. Take care.
Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey you, are you wasting your time on social media again? Your brothers and sisters in Islam Net from Norway are establishing a masjid, a dawah center. Establishing a masjid to convey the message of Islam is one of the best deeds a Muslim can do. There's a huge need for it in Norway. You know this and I know this. So that makes the reward even greater. So give generously and Allah Azza wa Jal will give you even more.